Let's get it poppin'. Let's get it poppin'. Let's get it poppin'.
Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Happy Sunday. Tonight I have Anthony DiMaggio joining me here on Basement Politics. Happy Sunday, folks. What's going on? Hope you're all having a blessed and happy and prosperous week. I'm Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics. What's going on? Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics on Filter. I hope to have Anthony DiMaggio here joining me shortly. Happy Sunday tonight. I want to talk about a few things, but I'm going to wait for Anthony DiMaggio to really get into it. But I wanted to start off just talking a little bit about zoning, right, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. I posted up. I've been posting up some old, news articles, things that happened, 10 years ago. Maybe 5 years ago, but it's important because it shows a pattern, right? And as we've been hearing recently about the St. Mary's Church now having trouble and possibly closing down, many of the parishioners are upset. Many people are wondering why. It's been here for over 150 years. Can it be saved? But the Archdiocese is saying that they cannot afford to do the renovations that are needed. They're going to cost about $10 million. But it's strange how after 150 years, all of a sudden, the church is in so much need of repair that it has to shut down just in time for all the development that's going up, right? Don't you find that interesting? And so I posted up an old article about a church that was located on Hudson Street. And the church was sold, and now they're building, that's behind the shop right there. They're building the 44 no, it's not 44. Is it a 25-story tower at 44 Hudson, right? And initially, there was only supposed to be a 15-story building there, but the Zoning Board of Appeals approved even higher, right? They wanted to go to 27, but they got the approval for 25. And that was, not without scandal, because that project was having trouble getting approved initially by the zoning board. And so they wanted to approve it so bad that they decided to remove some of the zoning board members who have been on there for 30 plus years, right? These were individuals that were very experienced, knowledgeable, but they were voting no on this project there, right? Over there by behind ShopRite again, right by the YMCA. There was a church there. Next to it, there was a daycare center and a little yard where the kids would play. And then that piece of property was bought up. The church was demolished. And now you see this big luxury building going up. But in order for it to happen, they had to remove these individuals. And they removed them without even notifying them, right? They didn't say, hey, you know what? We're going to be, appointing new members. We're going to be, changing things up a little bit. No, they just went ahead and appointed certain individuals. One of them was the son of the real estate developer and investor, a gentleman whose last name is Gilage. I forgot the father's name, but the son's name was Anthony Gilage. And very recently, his brother took his place. He was appointed to the zoning board. And many people wonder why such a young man was being appointed to the board, a man with no experience. But it was very interesting to many that his dad was a real estate investor here, someone that has also donated to many of the elected officials, right? So they put him on, got rid of the other individual who didn't find out officially till 3 months later that he was off the zoning board, and they ended up getting it approved, right? So the zoning board is something that I think many believe needs to be audited and investigated. We need to know what's going on there. But anyway, folks, help me welcome Anthony DiMaggio. Anthony, what's going on, man? How you been?
What's up, buddy? I'm good. How are you?
Good, not too bad. there was a post. We get these posts that are posted about us regularly, right? You know what I'm talking about, and the negative post. And one of them was that we were no longer friends. We're not friends anymore. What's going on, Romario? How you doing?
Now, of course,
They don't really like this. They don't really like you to come on the podcast for some reason, but I get a lot of people that request you on the podcast. And whenever I do podcasts with you, we get a lot of views. So, people want to see you. They want to hear from you. How's everything?
Well, I'm happy to be of service. Everything's good, for the most part.
I wanted to talk to you about a few things, but really quick, recently you see that Keith Olson, PBA president, has retired, and now he has been replaced. Do you know anything about the individual that has replaced him?
Oh, Frank? Yeah, I knew Frank pretty well on the job, and I knew him a little bit before I was a cop. Right about the time he got hired, we had some mutual friends that we would go and play darts with sometimes up in White Plains. And, I always thought Frank was a good guy. He was actually, before he was even the vice, he was I guess what you would say, the trustee for the PBA in the first precinct. And I had a couple of dealings with him as a sergeant when I had to deal with some of the problem children in that precinct. And, it always worked out all right. Frank's a pretty good guy.
How do you feel things will go moving forward with the union?
Well, I mean, look, now that the final and arguably the most prominent Olsonet is gone from the department, it's, in my opinion, it's a really good day for the department because it's basically a cancer-free department now. And those guys were a cancer. I've always said that. I'll stick by that statement. Keith, I saw on one podcast you did the other day. You said that, look, you got to operate that way in Yonkers. And,
right. And I know you sent me a text message, right? You said you gave him a pass, right? Because I shared a post congratulating him on his retirement. I've never heard, no one's ever sent me anything negative about Keith Olson. Actually, I saw Keith Olson not too long ago over at the courthouse over there on South Broadway. And so, since I don't have no beef with Keith, I'm not a person to wish people, the negative stuff, but I don't take away from whatever it is or you or maybe any other people may feel. I'm just saying from my experience, but you said I gave him a pass. I'm just being a nice guy. That's normally who I am, and I was just wishing the guy, best of luck on his retirement.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's what I've referred to before as a shithead '90s cop with the shithead mentality of cops, old school cops like that, and believe me, it goes back before the '90s, obviously, but the '90s was like a stronghold of guys like Mueller and Venturino, who someone didn't think he was so funny recently. I think you and I spoke about that. I let you know about that, and a few days before Christmas, he had a bad night. Louis Goumba.
Yeah. And that's the guy that left the message that I've played on the podcast, right? That kind of was at the centerpiece of everything that happened to you.
Right. Yeah, he was out, him and the boys, usually Keith Olson too. They go out, mostly retired guys. They go out around the holidays every year. And, there's all sorts of pictures online of these dinners they go to every Christmas over the years. And, I got a call the next day after it happened, and someone told me, I'm going to give you some good news. I said, well, what's that? And this person told me Venturino got knocked out cold. So
there goes the new PBA president, correct?
Yep. That's Frank.
I've seen him before.
Yeah. But anyway, but about that rumor, a lot of times rumors are exaggerated, but then when they told me who the guy that allegedly knocked him out was, I said, oh yeah, he was out cold if that guy hit him. That's not the guy to mess with. But
so it's somebody that he knew.
A friend of his for I think 30 years, pretty good friend of his from the job, drinking buddy.
And this is at the Yonkers Brewing Company. They were having a celebration for the retirement of Keith Olson. You see Mike Breen there.
Yeah, this was the other night. The incident I'm talking about is
right. No, I'm just showing these pictures here.
Downtown, yeah, right.
How come you didn't show up?
You know what? Somebody asked me to go. I said, "Come on, bro. I mean,
No, I'm kidding.
you can only poke the needle so much,
Well, how's the situation going with you, right? What's the last where we left off at? What's been up with you?
Nothing much, man. I just been, I've been laying low. I have a new job. I've been spending time with my kid. I've been looking into some new things, longer term investments and things like that, because I do have some money to play with, and I'm coaching some other people who are involved in the same scam that the city pulls. My buddy Paulie, um, he's on the verge of getting fired,
Okay.
and
Well,
you know they're trying to push him to play more games with them. And I said, look, I'm not an attorney. I can't give you legal advice, but you know, I saw the writing on the wall. I saw everything that they were doing with me, and couldn't be any clearer that they were just arranging the pieces, to position themselves in the best possible position before firing me. That's what they were going to do. That was their ultimate goal. And
right.
so I tell other people, I tell people that I'm writing this book, and people are excited because it's finally going to be, they feel, a comeuppance for people like John Mueller and Keith Olson. That's a secondary thing in the book. The primary reason that I'm writing this book is to warn people, civil servants, cops especially, about the way this scam works with the doctors. Okay, and I just put a line in it the other day. I'm writing it on a computer that's not connected to the internet, because I don't want hacking or anything like that taking place. But writing, and I put a line in there I put it in all italics, basically. If you're having issues in the workplace, if you're having disputes or whatever, and you've never had any history of psychological problems or anything like that, and you're having issues with other people in the workplace, people who are connected to management, have strong connections, relationships with management, you find yourself being told to go for a psychological evaluation, the
Don't go.
situation, the determination, the decision has already been made to fire you. They are going to fire you either with these psychological games, if you're stupid enough to walk into them, or they're going to fire you for insubordination for refusing to participate in them. That's the route that I would go if I could do it all over again. And
Now,
then,
Paulie, as you
right,
mentioned, he's a DPW employee, right? Who was
right,
also sent to the shrinks, the side, over at IMA over
right.
in Hartsdale, right? And he was fortunate enough to have you warn
Mhm.
him ahead of time, which helped his case a bit more, right? And this is the point of you speaking out,
Yeah,
right? It's helped
yeah.
him. Tell me about that.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, what they did with him is they actually did something that I think, according to the law, they're really not even allowed to do at all. But you know how they work. They do whatever they want, and if they've broken laws or deviated from appropriate procedure, well, then that's the impetus is on you to just bring them to court and bring that up. So they do whatever they want. They don't care about the rules. And what they did was, he got his ruling down from the hearing officer, the hearing that just finished 5-6 months ago, and he wasn't getting anything back from the hearing officer, and he's saying, what's taking so long? I said, well, they have an election coming up. You're not going to hear anything about this until after the election. And I said, they're waiting until after the election to hammer you, because DPW and a lot of people who might sympathize with you and what they're doing to you is a big part of their voting block. So they don't want to piss anybody off, not even one or two votes. So you're not going to hear anything until after the election. And of course, they wait a good, month and a half after the election to not make it so obvious. They can't just have the hearing officer hand them the decision the day after the election. That makes it
All right.
too obvious what they were waiting for. So the hearing officer comes down, agrees with the city. I told Paulie that that's what he was going to do. That's what he's there for. You know what I mean? And I'm reading in the report different dates, and it spells out a little bit of a timeline of what was going on back in October of 2022. All right. Now, when Paulie called me and told me that they were sending him to the IMA clinic, I said, you're walking into a legal scam. I tried my damnedest to convince him not to go, but he had attorneys telling him to go. You got to go. And, he didn't really know me too well at that
Right.
point. So he ended up going. I said, at least do yourself a big favor and record the damn thing. And he did. Okay. Now,
Right.
if you think back to the timeline, this was in December, early, maybe November, December of 2022. Now, if you think back to that timeline, what was already happening at that point? Freddie Vasquez and Anthony DiMaggio were already 2 or 3 months into podcasting, exposing the scam going up at the IMA clinic. So they didn't wait. As soon as they got that report back, they must have put 2 and 2 together and said, at some point, Anthony DiMaggio and Paul Agostino were going to start talking to each other about this scam. And they immediately sent him to another doctor. This guy, that guy that we went over, that Greg Mack guy who works for the NYPD. He's just as much of a fraud. The report he wrote on Paulie was 10 times worse. And ultimately, what they came down with, what the hearing officer decided was that the city had probable cause to place Paulie out of the workplace, indefinitely, no pay, all of this, because his reaction to the rumors that were being spread about him made him a danger in the workplace. So now you have all these people who are going around spreading these vile rumors about you, could affect your marriage, could affect everything. And because you're angry about them and upset, and because you've decided to take a little of your built-up sick time off at work with your supervisor's permission, you're abnormal. You need to be suspended from the workplace. Does that make sense? I mean,
the problem really was that, and this is the same with you, right? This is what initiated it, and the same with my wife as well, is that you spoke out about something, Paulie spoke out about something, I was speaking out about something, and so they had to take action. Paulie went to someone who he thought was an independent investigator and felt comfortable speaking to this person who he later determined was actually working for the city. Correct?
No, I think you're talking about someone that he has sort of retained as a legal advisor. Yeah.
Well, initially he spoke to a woman that said she was an independent.
Oh no,
person.
that was so. What happened was, with him, and I've already spoken about all of this on my own podcast that I was doing, that I haven't done in a while, but so I don't have a problem speaking about it again. If you look at the timeline of events, even as it's spelled out in the hearing officer's report, you can clearly see what's going on, okay? Because he had made complaints to Human Resources about, certain people with prominent political names, like Nolan, going around in the workplace, spreading vile rumors about him. Stuff that lawsuits are made of, you know what I mean? So he complained to HR, and then he was in contact. I'm summarizing here, but this is basically the gist of it. He reported this stuff to HR, asked for an investigation, and then he went to some of his supervisors and said, I don't even want to be in this effing place, this workplace. It's so disgusting and vile. All the idiots I work with, and I'm paraphrasing, this is stuff that he's told me.
Right.
He doesn't even want to be there. He wants to start using some of the large amounts of sick time and whatnot that he's built up over the years and never used. And they said, okay, no problem, fine. Okay. While he was out, he sought counsel from some sort of a grief counselor or whatever about issues going on in the workplace. Okay. He made the mistake of telling that to this woman, Tracy, up at Human Resources. She must have consulted with legal and said, yeah, I've done this investigation. There are these vile rumors going around about him. It was probably started by the Nolan brothers. Not Jimmy, but his 2 other brothers, one of whom's a cop now. Okay. What do I do? And at that point, legal said, get him up to the IMA clinic. We have to start a legal action against him, make him the defendant in a legal action surrounding the same set of workplace circumstances that he was about to sue us over. Okay. That's the scam. The best defense is a good offense. So have our doctors who's, independent, they call them independent medical examiners, right? The independent medical, what is IMA? I even forgot what it stands for, but it's, I is independent. Oh, they don't work for us. I mean, we have a contract with them, but this is, they're civilians, they're licensed, they're professionals.
If they want to keep that contract, they're going to make sure they play ball, right? And they're going to produce the reports that they know that the city is probably looking for.
Right. So it's a big scam. And, and now when I speak to Paulie now, do you see what I was talking about? We were on the phone a year, 14, 15 months ago. It's a big scam. You're walking into a legal scam.
So what are the recourses? Because, there have been a lot of people recently fired, especially right after the election, certain individuals, council members, legal aid like Anthony Moranti. I hear Corazon Pineda Isaac, the councilwoman of District 2, her chief of staff or legislative aid, I said not legal aid, legislative aid was also fired. They're saying that's a form of retaliation because they oppose, certain individuals. what is the recourse? What do people do? I mean, this is crazy how people can just be terminated for retaliatory reasons, and
Yeah,
there's nowhere to
I'm
turn to.
not really sure. These are something like a situation like the Spano family, where it's basically a family of politicians who served at a higher level of government and have now moved down. And they tried to move down as Republicans. That didn't work. They lost their primary to Amacone. Mike did. So at some point, the bell must have went off, and they said, "Well, why are we trying to, win the Republican primary when, the future is in the Democratic Party in places like Yonkers?" Once Obama made it very popular to be a Democrat again, so they sort of rode that wave. They switched parties, and now they're here for 4 terms,
The
probably
numbers in
5,
in
probably
Democrats'
6.
favors.
Right, sure.
Right.
So now it's really turned into a system of one party rule throughout the entire state, so they can get away with murder. There's no checks and balances. There's no prominent Republicans around holding any sort of significant offices who are going to say, investigate stuff like that, who are going to speak out on a news channel against them. They
Well, that's what
operate.
the inspector general is supposed to do, right? The Yonkers, and he's a
Yeah,
Republican,
sure.
Liam McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he
Yeah.
investigate?
Probably because he's just going along to get along, like everyone else around here. He probably got something promised to him. He probably figured, well, because he ran from city council president.
Right.
He was the city
he
council
was a
president.
city council president. Right?
He was
He
the city
lost to
council
Mike
president,
Cater.
and then he lost to Mike Cater, and he probably figured at some point that running for anything as a Republican around here was like throwing shit against the tide. So, I'll just take what scraps they offer me.
How close of a relationship does he have with, let's say certain members, the mayor, the Spano administration members,
Liam
of the family? Yeah. How close?
Oh, I don't know. Like on a personal level, like the question to ask is how close were they before they gave him this position? And what was them giving him this position based on? What there's always an understanding. Obviously, he's not really going to do anything that hurts them. But we don't need people like Liam. Okay, that's why the people who founded this country made things like the First Amendment, and you have the freedom of speech, like we're doing now. You have the freedom of publication, like I'm in the process of doing.
Right.
And so people are going to know one way or the other. It's going to take longer. It's going to cost me some money, but people are still going to know. And it's.
I mean, there's so many things that are happening that are at least worth looking into. We're not trying to say it was for sure that it happened. For example, like when the Tasha D, as a majority leader, was trying to award her campaign manager a no bid contract. That's something that should have been investigated, right?
Right.
Nothing was said about it. I received copies of complaints that were filed by Sam Dadal, a man that's been doing business in the city of Yonkers for 30 plus years, has a huge plumbing company because of his permits being purposely held up. There's no investigation to that. But Mike Cater, he gets investigated for quid pro quo, right? Who was the guy that defeated Liam McLaughlin to become the city council president. So, I mean, things like that, it just draws a lot of suspicion, right?
Well, it's monopolies in the private sector are outlawed. In the public sector, there's no check on it. If one develops over many years, like this one has, it's a dynasty. The Spanos are a dynasty in this town. And from what I'm told, they're looking to move up to bigger levels of government again, maybe going up to the county or whatever. I think that will be a little bit more difficult for them because there are more Republicans in other parts of the county. Not to mention, once you get outside of Yonkers, no one really cares about the Spano name.
You don't think that he'll do well if he were to run for county executive, which is what I've been hearing. Mike Spano may run for county executive. George Latimer is looking to replace Jamal Bowman in Congress. How do you think he'll do?
That's already that's already been announced, and that I think is on the way already, right?
Yeah, George Latimer anyway.
I don't know how Mike Spano will do. I don't know. It's running for county executive is not going to be the cakewalk that running for Yonkers mayor 4 times has been for him. So that's why they hold the elections. You just got to go through it and see. I think that'd be a terrible thing if they get another promotion in government because they're not good people.
Well, I was surprised to hear that because Mike Spano, wanted the 4th term or ran for a 4th term because he said he needed to finish the job that he started, and only he And this is what Lakeisha Collins Bellamy said, the city council president, which is why she introduced the legislation alone to extend the terms, because she looked around and she didn't see anyone else, any other candidates that would be able to fulfill what Mike Spano started, to fill his shoes in a sense, right? And so if he were to then run for county legislator, then who's going to fulfill, who's going to take his place? Who's going to be able to do, right? So it doesn't make sense to me. Then it was just really a waste of fourth term. And like some people are saying, that fourth term was more about the pension, right? The longer they hold office, the more, their pensions are going to be much better, much higher, or something like that. I don't know all the details about it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I know how the police and fire pension system works, but I don't think that if they stuck around for much longer, that their pensions would be all that much bigger, or that they would even really.
Oh, they secure a pension? Well, not the Spanos necessarily,
Yeah,
but like Mike Breen's, Tasha Diaz is,
Well, under the police and fire system, you're vested after 10 years. So if you've done 10 years, you'll get something. I don't know how it works under the other pension system, but I mean, I don't think they're worried about that. I mean, they're millionaires. I don't think they're.
Well, yeah, the Spanos, but yeah. their goal is not so much a pension, but there are other individuals that that will benefit from, continue to remain in office, right? Not, obviously they benefit in many other ways, but in terms of the pension system, which is something that, the city of Yonkers needs to keep an eye on. I mean, our pension is ballooning way out of control.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't been around for a few years now, so I'm not really. I get the juicy stuff with the rumors, not the daily financial numbers and things like that.
That's a concern. I mean, we spend a lot of that budget on salary and pension. But one of the things that concerns me also is just how much control of the police department is held by some of our elected officials, right? Our police department, we love our police department, we love our officers, right? But there is some control there that's scary, because, if they have an issue with you, they can, leverage that connection to the police department against you.
They can, which is, I mean, they can. And, if we're talking specifically about your little incident on the street the other day with the Yonkers Voice, which in my opinion wasn't much of an incident at all, but those are the kind of things where if they don't like you, they can seize upon something like that and trump it up into some shit that it really was not. And I heard that something like that might have been in the works, but if it hasn't happened yet, then it probably won't. If it hasn't happened by now, it probably won't. So I'm happy for that.
It's crazy, because I mean, this is an individual that has been attacking my family with another individual for 2 years. Nothing has been done about it. They say, well, we can't do nothing about it. It's just said stuff on the internet. But ultimately, that stuff can lead to more problems. I mean, the person that we're talking about already said to me one day when he approached my car to nowhere, he put his hand inside my car and said, one day you and I are going to have a problem. So if it's not nipped in the bud and then a problem happens and now you want to start arresting certain people, it's crazy to me. Like, this is why it needs to be addressed right away. I filed a report. My wife has also filed a complaint also for sexual harassment. She's filed a complaint because of some of the inappropriate sexual comments that he's made in regards to my wife, which I have on audio and video.
Yeah, I mean, if I was, someone high ranking in the police department, I would be getting in touch with both of you and saying, listen, you two have to just stay away from each other. Don't talk to each other. Yeah, well, and probably he would be too, but it's when.
And I still have stuff being written about me. I mean, I got some more screenshots today, and I don't respond. I don't respond to this.
No, that's not going to stop. That's never going to stop. That's it sucks, but it's also the beauty of the First Amendment is that we don't punish. I mean, you can take them to court if you want and say you're defaming me. You can do that, but aside from that, we get to say what we want in this country, and that's why we love it so much.
Yeah, but it's a I mean, this is a man that will specifically make comments and harass a woman that has nothing, has never said a word to him, has nothing to do with anything, and he has no problem doing this. And I just hope people see who this individual is. I mean, this is a man that's had a history for harassing women. There's police reports already on file for harassing multiple women. He's admitted to having child pornography on his phone. He was charged with sexual assault of a minor. He was arrested for selling cocaine to undercover YPD officers. I mean, and you look at my rap sheet, it's zero. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's called cyberbullying, absolutely. And they talk about it all the time. but they don't do anything when it's their people, right? Because we know, and many of us know that they work for the elected officials.
Well, as far as legally, what would they do legally? In your case, your case and Ruros's case, they're not going to do anything, and I don't think they should, because you're both grown men, and it's not like you're not tying up a noose because of anything that him or Brian Harrod posts about you. You know what I mean? You're a grown man; you can deal with it. You might not like it, but you can deal with it. When it comes to 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds, things like that, where they're emotionally frail, well, that's a tougher situation.
I mean, he has mentioned my kids. They continue to mention my kids actually in recent posts. They've posted pictures of my kids. Where does it, when do they get involved there, right? I mean, that presents a threat to me. It makes me very uncomfortable. Like I said, when it's my kids and wife, you want to say what you want about me, I don't care, right? But that's wrong of what the man does, But,
well, if he is having things, I don't follow the Yonkers Voice all that closely. I think I do follow it technically on Facebook, but I don't follow it all that closely. Only reason I see a lot of Harrod's stuff is because he mentions me in it a lot. So I'll get an alert saying that you were just mentioned in a post.
Yeah, me too.
Right. So
I don't even pay attention to him. I get the screenshots and I save it just to keep compiling all the history. But for 2 years, I mean, this guy's going at it. But that's just what concerns me, because there's been incidents with, like, let's say Tasha Diaz and assaults. She's assaulted her father. I mean, a stepdad. I got this report from people within City Hall. I got this from her own family members. Yet and still, we don't hear about it. We don't hear about her jumping her stepdad with her sister in the lobby of Jefferson Terrace, right?
Look, with those outlets, what you got to understand is if there's things being posted there, then the same people that you're hoping might do something about it are the ones who are telling them to do it.
Right.
You know what I
That's
mean?
the problem.
I know for a fact that Ruros has been asked to write negative things about me, to post negative things about me. He doesn't do it, probably because his sources within the police department tell him that I absolutely 100% got the shaft, and that he might lose some support amongst the cops for going after me. Maybe that's why he hasn't done it. I don't know. But Harrod is a different case. He's a little less cautious.
Well, he has nothing to lose. I mean, he lives on
Right.
government
Well,
assistance completely for free. He lives in a municipal housing. He doesn't pay for a damn thing, and that's why they utilize him. Because what are you going to go after this guy for? And he's a nut. He doesn't care. But it just concerns me. I've had business owners also have spoken to me about how the city council majority leader has utilized the police to harass his business over an argument he got into with her daughter, or her, when she was an employee of the guy in his business. She didn't like, what he said to her daughter, the fact that he moved it to another location. She brought the police up in there along with the fire department and was threatening to give him violations. He was saying that his customers were being harassed with tickets and stuff. And I just hope that that's not true. I have a lot of respect for the Yonkers Police Department. I've had a lot of positive engagements with them, so I'm not, ever going to down them or be negative toward them. And I understand that there's, there's individuals above them that,
sure,
they have to
that's
answer
always
to.
what it is, though. I mean, that's always
They don't want to lose their
you know,
job. They see what happened to Anthony DiMaggio, right? And
right,
others.
things like writing tickets or not writing tickets. That's all stuff that's controlled by the powers that be. Like Keith Olsen, that was a favorite tool of his. The cops, when it comes to summonses or things like that, a lot of times people like Keith Olsen will use it as a tool to retaliate against management when he's not getting what he wants. And the cops are just following orders because, God forbid, they go against Keith Olsen. They're going to be, I mean, same situation with me. I went against an Olsenette, and
Right.
he wasn't even an important Olsenette. He was an asshole. So now imagine you go to one of the higher ranking. You go against one of the higher ranking Olsenettes, like Keith Olsen, who's telling you not to write tickets because he's mad at the mayor. Well, you go out writing tickets, you're going to find yourself in the crosshairs. But it was so, like, just to give you an anecdote. Some years back, Keith Olsen at a PBA meeting issued the order not to write summonses. I can't remember what he was mad over the mayor. The mayor's doing something, saying something. He was mad at the mayor Spano over something. So they have these little riffs. And Keith says, "All right, no more summonses until I say." Now, what will happen is that City Hall or the third floor, the brass, this was before Mueller was the commissioner, will push back by having the supervisors, the CLS, ensure that the cops are writing X amount of summonses or out there looking for parking violations and things like that. So it's the supervisor's job when one of these orders comes down from someone like Keith Olson to get involved and actually make sure the cops are out there enforcing the vehicle and traffic law.
All
right. So when Keith gave the order, Frank McDonald, who was just a first precinct rep at the time, he was a patrol guy, right? He wasn't a detective or anything like that. He was never an investigator, always a patrol guy. And he said he brought it up right at the meeting, right at the table where Keith was telling everybody not to write summonses. He said, okay, well, what costs are the detectives going to incur because of this? Because what's going to happen is when we stop writing summonses and the bosses get wind that we've been ordered to stop writing summonses, what they're going to do is they're going to start enforcing the 72-hour rule. The rule is, you have to put in for a day off because you get personal days, you get vacation days, things like that. You have to put in for a day off at least 72 hours in advance. Most of the time, the bosses look the other way because it's really no big deal. If it's less than 72 hours, you want to take a last minute day off or something. As long as there's other personnel to cover you, it's usually not a big deal. But they can enforce it. Right, they can enforce it whenever they want. So, when one of these orders comes down, this is how the supervisors will retaliate. Okay, well now because the captain wants his summonses, because I did a whole podcast about that with this situation that this cop over Eastchester was getting, effed with, retaliated against, fired basically for a whole bunch of other shit they made up about him because he wouldn't write summonses, or at least not the number that management wanted. They want X amount of summonses. So when Keith Olson says no more summonses for now, they retaliate in ways like this. They start enforcing the 72-hour rule. Oh, you just put in for a day. You just went on the computer and made an entry to put in for a day. 71 and a half hours, away, and that's no good. So it's going to get denied. So
what do officers do though? Well, how do they?
Frank McDonald said to the detectives, "This is what they're going to do in the precincts. It's going to come back to to bite us in the ass. What costs are you guys going to incur?" And it was a whole big beef. So he is a little bit of a stand-up guy, and I hope he's more of a stand-up guy, and I hope he does the right thing moving forward. He's not. I hope he's not nowhere nearly as unscrupulous as a guy like Keith Olson.
But as you said, in past podcasts, in order to be appointed to that spot or take over, you have to, be willing to do certain things. You have to be, you have to play by the game, right? Their game, and you can't just say, "No, I'm not going to do this," right? I mean,
what are you talking
pretty
about?
much enforce it. Well, I mean, I don't see how he would be much different from Keith Olson and how he ran the PBA, right? I don't think they would want it to change. I don't think they would want someone else who's going to go in there and do things differently.
Well, you have to. I mean, look. Yeah, I mean, look. Keith Olson was not well liked on the job. I don't care what anybody says. I could tell stories that I'm not going to tell on the podcast. He was not well liked. You could just take my word for it, or don't. But trust me, he was not that well liked. Some people liked him. People that he took care of. That was a small group.
Right.
The majority of the PBA didn't like him, didn't support him. Because he would do stupid things like make the clown face creep the commissioner. Nobody liked that guy. Everyone hated him. Well, why is Keith doing that? Keith, throughout the American workforce, employers are always going to try to make inroads with labor leaders, okay, whether it be the private sector or the public sector. They're always going to try to get them in bed to one degree or another, okay? Now, your membership won't get mad at you for being in bed with the employer, with management, as long as you're doing the right thing by them, as long as you're using your influence with management to do the right thing by everybody, okay? Keith wasn't. Keith always took care of his small little clique. I made a comment. I made a post.
That's all of them. I mean, that's all of these council members.
It's a lot of them. It's a lot of them. But,
community leaders and stuff. And that's how they keep the system going, right? They take care of a few, and they take care of themselves, and they do what they're told, and that's what it's about. And I say that not to bring up race, but I say that within our community, his Latinos and the Blacks, there's the few that are getting what they want, and they're ignoring a lot of what's happening to that group, and what some of the things that they need, right? Because they're getting what they want, they're moving up, they're opening their little businesses, right? Or they're getting elected, so I mean that's how it is. And that's what I'm wondering, is Frank gonna be that type of guy? Or you say he's a stand-up guy? Is it going to be a change now for the PBA? You think it's going to be better days, according to how you feel?
Well, it wasn't always to the degree that it was with Keith Olson. I mean, think about it. Think about what I said. And, some of the feedback I got after we spoke about this on the podcast tended to suggest that it was true. You know, they threatened their own brother, Gerard, who wanted to run against Keith. They had it so good with Keith Olsen that when Gerard Spano wanted to run against him, they said, don't even think about it. We'll transfer all your friends out of all their units.
I met
Well,
Gerard before. He seemed like a
you know,
very good guy, from the short time that I was, speaking with him and engaging him. Seemed like a good guy.
he is a good guy, yeah. No, yeah,
Have you
Gerard
not?
is,
No, I was
Gerard
going
is
to say,
one.
have you?
Gerard is one of what we call the younger brothers.
Like your friend Vinny, he's a younger brother. I was wondering if you heard anything from from your sources, or what are they saying in regards to Frank now being the new PBA president? How do they, any of the sentiment, how people feel, officers? Are they happy about
I've
it,
heard.
or
I
have they
mean, I've been
mentioned it at
hearing.
all?
It's been common knowledge for a lot of years that he was going to be the next PBA president. Which to go to what that guest, what was her name? The woman that was doing a whole lot of commenting on today's post. Nikki, was it Nikki something?
I'm not sure.
She's the one I said, well, ask Freddie.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah, Nikki.
Yeah, so, to go to what she was saying, all right, now he's being sworn in. All right, well, was there an election? I don't know that there was. No one told me there was an election. If there was, it was never reported back to me. Not that I'm anyone to report to, but I do have a pretty good ear to what's going on in the department. And I didn't hear anything about an election.
Maybe he's the interim. They're appointing him as the interim president, and there will be an election at some point.
Well, right. So one of the bylaws, at least in the CLSA, I'm sure it's probably the same in the PBA, is that the outgoing president gets to handpick his successor. I don't think it has to be the VP. It doesn't have to be the VP. Okay, it could be anybody, which is wild. You would think it would have to be the VP. If the president's stepping down, the VP should take over, just like president of the United States.
Right.
But he can pick anybody he wants. Now, in this case, Keith has been grooming Frank for a lot of years. To do his job. So he just gets sworn in right away. Now, will there be an election in the future? I don't know. But I mean, the way I see it is, if you have a planned date set where you're going to retire, you should be throwing together announcing, there needs to be a special election. Right? They do that in politics. It's a special election. The incumbent is vacating the office.
Well, Keith is not completely retiring, right? He's going to be going into the private sector. I got a link about a company that he started, a consulting company, where he's looking to consult, on issues pertaining to police unions and creating strategies. I guess I'm not too sure exactly, but he's not out of it completely. He's going to be now in the private sector as a consultant. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much success he's going to have, because a lot of his success as a PBA president was owed to a lot of the protection that he got from management, from City Hall. Statements like, hey, Gerard, if you do that, we'll transfer all your friends. Gerard is well liked. If he runs against Keith, he might have a chance of winning, but it never happened. Okay, so he'll tout his success as PBA president, 14 years as PBA president, all this success, all these accomplishments, but a lot of it was made possible by the protection of management, who he was in bed with. You know what I mean? So what is a strategy or solution from Keith Olsen to somebody who's paying for him for his advice going to sound like? Hope the executive of the city has a greedy ass ex-senator of a brother who opens up a lobbying firm, and you can just funnel money to it and get whatever you want in exchange. Well, I mean, that's
on the website. I checked out the website from the link that was sent to me, and I saw that there were some pictures of him. I guess there were protests. We need a contract now, or something like that. He was saying, I fought hard when we didn't have a contract for 3 years, and I was like, you don't have a contract for 3 years, that if I'm going to hire you, I want to make sure that you don't go that long without a contract, that you're getting the contract.
He touts things that are not really accomplishments, but the mayor sort of did the same thing, right? During the negotiations.
I just thought that was funny.
He goes, well, the mayor said, the mayor takes a page from the same book. Oh, the average citizen in the city of Yonkers makes $34,000. Well, gee, who's going to do something about that? Maybe the guy who's been the mayor for 12 years, maybe. Right. You're highlighting what a failure of a mayor you are, and you're touting it as we need to deny the police a good contract because they make so much more money than everybody else. Well, it's your fault, dude.
Right.
So I mean, it's like, it's things like that. How much success? He's not that great of a politician. He never had to be. He had protection. He had a lot of people. He had a lot of forces deterring others from trying to take his gig or speaking out against him. Things like that. So now he's in the private sector. It's a whole different ballgame. I don't know what it's going to look like. Will he have success? I don't know.
Well, that's like a lot of our
Time
elected
will tell.
officials, right? I mean, what experience do many of them have, outside of being elected officials? Many of them have never had true experience in the private sector, and, in the private workforce, managing anything, overseeing anything. Tasha Diaz, Shanae William went from being the mayor's scheduler to a councilwoman after they, pushed Chris Johnson out into the county. What real experience do really any of them have besides being in politics? Some of them have lived with their mother or their parents while they were in office. And so that just says a lot of the qualifications when they talk about people being unqualified, right? Who
Look,
are
I
the
have
real
a feeling. I have a feeling that his new company or whatever is going to be just another sort of a shell company where he just peddles influence, right? He's in tight with the Spanos. The Spanos are in tight with Albany. Hence, Keith Olsen has influence with Albany through the Spanos. So it might be just another racket where pay me and I'll go try to get something done for you. You know what I
get
mean?
contracts from Yonkers, New
Right.
Rochelle, Mount Vernon, to
And we
do
disguise it as consultation fees.
Well, there's a
Right.
lot of that going on. Like there's these campaign consulting companies that some of these
Right.
individuals have. What are you guys consulting on? Or credit card processing companies. Well, what are you guys actually doing with these companies? And these are a bunch of shell companies that they have, and they get paid to do whatever dirt that they're doing. On the side, and a lot of people don't know about it. We just focus on their city salary that's listed there publicly, but they're making a lot of side money through these companies, these consulting firms, shell companies, with real estate deals, buying property where they know it's going to be developed, then getting the city council to change zoning laws so their properties become worth more and more appealing to developers. There's a whole lot of that going on here in the city of Yonkers.
Sure. Yeah,
Anthony,
go
ahead.
Yeah, no, they've learned how to, and I'm not just talking about the Spanos or Keith Olsen's, politicians in general, people in general have learned different ways to disguise bribery as something legitimate, So, and it's been happening a lot in recent times.
So tell me, was there anything that you want to talk about before we get off here? I want to make sure we don't miss anything you've been thinking about recently.
No, I mean, I've had my mind on a lot of other things, and I've been kind of laying low, working on the outline for this book. I'm not rushing it. There's no reason to rush it. I want it to be good. I want it to be juicy enough to be able to sell, to have some good stories in it, aside from just babbling on about the scam.
Right.
But
I look forward to that. I'm sure a lot of people.
Oh, it's going to be a while. It'll be probably at least a few years, I would imagine. But yeah. So, well, to address what your commenter earlier, the female, I can't remember her name, I think it was Nikki, was saying today. She was saying, well, it seems like Frank McDonald has been getting promoted periodically, almost like at intervals, and being taken care of. And as I think we spoke about on a podcast a long time ago, making union guys detective. Well, why? Why? What was he, investigator? What does he do? He or she? What kind of investigatory work did they do as union heads? Like union officials? They did none. So what is it? It's basically a bribe from management. Play nice with us. We give you this $10,000 stipend, a take-home car in some situations. So management does, and it might be contractual that union heads get that, but I don't know why. You should be getting nothing from management in the contract or otherwise, because just the appearance of it is improper. You know what I mean? It just looks like you're being bought off. So, they do tend to take care of the people that they prefer to be holding the union positions. Desk, like the CLSA board members, they all have desk jobs.
And what do they do throughout the day? I mean, I know with certain unions, like I was told, like the CSCA president, he doesn't have to report to his normal position. He still gets his salary, but he now just goes to the union office where he spends all day doing something. Is that the same with the PBA presidents and the CSLA presidents?
Well, their job on paper is a lot different than the job that the mayor wants them to do, which is what all of them seem to be doing. They all seem to be doing whatever the mayor wants, which in most cases is nothing. Stand down, and that's how you lose your union.
But I mean, they're not out in the street. They're not out, supervising officers.
No, Keith Olsen, a guy like Keith Olsen, there's zero police work. He hasn't done police work. If he ever did, he hasn't done any in probably 20 years. you know, and he got that. I didn't even realize his stipend was up around 70 grand or something like that. I mean,
they're getting
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
money.
money here, man. And like you said, the mayor said the average salary of the person here in the city of Yonkers is $35,000, but the average salary of city employees, it's over $100,000, particularly in the police and the fire. Teachers are making a lot of money. Not to say that they're not deserving of this salary, but they make a lot of money. And then they got all these stipends. The council members now, they get a $15,000 stipend as opposed to $5,000 now for every committee that they chair. All these raises, and yet the city's broke. How are we able to afford all this?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
That pandemic money has got to have run out by now.
I'm sure
Before
it has.
the pandemic, the city was it was categorized as being in financial distress, right? And the pandemic came and saved us, but spending money like it's nothing. I got DJ OP on there. Report the truth. OP, I asked you to come on the show. You got to talk about your story yourself. I mean, if you want to come on the podcast, you're more than welcome to join so you can talk about it. I've invited you. But outside of that, I don't know it like you do. So if you want to come on, you want to discuss it, bring all the documents that you have, you're more than welcome to. We can set up a day for that. Anthony DiMaggio, you're going to be watching some football now, right?
Yeah,
all right,
just one last thing. A few days, about a week or so ago, maybe it could have been maybe up to about 3 weeks now. I tried to bait Keith into a little social media war. I shared a post he made, and I added some not so nice comments of my own, and he didn't bite. He didn't bite, and the reason he didn't bite is because he's outclassed. Not to brag or anything, not to kiss my own ass, but he's outclassed. He's outmatched. I have all the facts on my side, and he doesn't have a whole lot to go on if he were to try to engage me. So he bowed out gracefully. He didn't even get involved. I think maybe he learned his lesson on the post that I did about Autumn, where I kind of mopped the floor with him a little bit. But especially when it comes to my situation, he got nothing for me. He's cooked. So I
know you hold Keith also responsible for Mueller being the commissioner at one point, and had he not had his influence to get Mueller in that position, you may not be in your position now.
Which is kind of what I'm always saying is, if you're such a cop's cop like you're always touting yourself to be, would you put a screwball like that in charge of 600 cops? You wouldn't. You would demand, you would do your part to make sure that it was at least a pretty good person, running the show. Someone like maybe even Anthony Chiarella, who was a little bit on the he's I liked him, a little bit of a goofball. He was an Olsenet, but he was at his heart, he was a decent person. Wasn't Mueller. I mean, so you're not a cop's cop, if you ask me. A guy like Keith, you're not. You're serving your own interests. You're taking care of your buddies. You're trying to get them promoted to bigger and better things beyond the YPD, so that they can pull you with them when you retire. And it's all a self-serving scam. And so I don't expect he'll be engaging me much. If he does want to, I welcome it with open arms. But I'm not.
He said, "I'm out of here. I'm retired. I'm on to bigger and better things, and I'm going to be going to Florida for a little bit, then come back up and run my consulting company, and hopefully score some huge contracts." And that's the city of Yonkers, folks. Very corrupt. The city of Hills, where nothing's on the level. This corruption is very real. Retaliation does exist, and we're victims of it. And we speak out about it. And a lot of people are, and we're speaking out for those who are unable to speak out for one reason or another. Anthony, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much. As Anthony DiMaggio, go check out his podcast, The Blue Truth, right?
Yeah, I haven't done one in a while. I've been busy with other things, and waiting for certain situations to pan out, see what goes on. But and I'll decide what to do thereafter. But everybody just keep my buddy Paulie Agostino in mind. He's on the verge of getting fired, and they're going to do it. They're absolutely going to do it, and it ain't right. It ain't right. And I couldn't get the book out fast enough to save him. But just keep me.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it. Says you guys are the best. Thank you very much. Anthony, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your day, and see you next week, possibly. Take care.
All right, Freddie. Thanks, pal.
Bye. Folks, that was Anthony DiMaggio. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered, where we expose the truth. As much as, we have the information, we put it out there. And so, again, I appreciate those who have my research team. And I say my team, but there are more people doing research. I appreciate it. They've been giving me a lot of information. More people are getting into this. Let's expose it. Let's expose the corruption. Let's expose what's going on here. Our greatest weapon is information, the internet, and exposure. They can't stop us all. So we must do this together. So again, I appreciate people who are researching and sending me information. Again, if you have information, politicwithfred@gmail.com, politicwithfred@gmail.com. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. Have a beautiful and blessed week, folks. And continue to share the podcast. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And check out past podcasts with Anthony DiMaggio. They're very interesting. A lot of people have found them to be very interesting. They do very well in the views. Shout out to you guys. And to those who keep posting about me, do what you want. I'm not going to respond anymore. I'm just going to continue to put the truth out there. The fact that you have to speak about my family so negatively just tells me that I'm obviously on the right track. Let's talk about those zoning changes. Watch out for those. And if you're a property owner and you're being forced to sell, don't. Reach out to me, politicwithfred@gmail.com. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Financially, emotionally, mentally, maybe physically. I don't know, Karate Roo. But you tougher than that, man. Put your hands on me. Don't ever do that again. And Steve, how you doing, bro? Are you Knucklehead DiMaggio, Steve? I know a lot of information about you, too. Chill. Have a blessed night. It's messed up what you did to Brenton, by the way. Brenton, reach out to me, man. It's time for the payback. It's time for revenge. They're laughing at you. You should see what they're sending me. Sending me things about you, Brenton. Is it true they had you escorted out of City Hall by 2 police officers, carrying your things down the steps, crying, where they once held your beautiful wedding? See how quickly they can turn on you, Brenton? You have the information. Send it to me. It's time for the get back. Brenton, don't go out like that.